Hello? Hello? I don't.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, some people are like, there's no voice. Sorry about that. We had to make sure all technical issues are being sorted out. We'll start at the right time. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning, Victor.
Morning, Afet.
Yes, thank you very much. And I want to welcome everyone to this meeting. From wherever you are speaking from, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So we're about to start right now. And just 1 minute to just share the slide, and we go on from here. We have 1 hour. Okay, this is a meeting where we'll be having a workshop soon, October 22nd, for 3 days with our world acclaimed sequence stratigrapher, Victor Abro. And this is a pre-conference workshop with him. just to let you know what will be expected during the program. And today we will start. I will introduce him. Then we will do a 5 minutes DANVIC Petroleum presentation for all of us. We will have the presentation by Professor Victor Abru for about 30 minutes, and they will take questions. Then we get to general information on registration, accounts, and all the rest of them. And we go into closing and appreciation. All this within 1 hour. So let me just introduce to you Professor Victor Abru. Manuel, can you please? All right. I have a long story about him, and you probably must have known, but I'm going to cut that short. You know all his story. He is an internationally recognized consultant in sequence stratigraphy and deep water reservoirs. He had a PhD from Rice University in Houston, and he has spent over 30 years of experience in petroleum exploration, development, and production. He used to be with Petrobras, where you have deep water experiences. And he went on and on and on until he got himself into ExxonMobil and was with ExxonMobil 2000 to 2016. And he had worked for over, I don't know how many countries now, but over 22 countries. I know he has done quite a lot of sedimentary studies in all the continents around the world. And that's why it explains why you are here today, this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening. So Victor is also a past president of Society of Sedimentary Geologists, and also a professor adjunct professor at Rice University. I can go on and on and on. He is a solid consultant and a solid experienced guy in sequence stratigraphy. Victor, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Let's go to the next slide. So I will invite our manager operations in Lagos to please just share little information with you about DANVIC Petroleum. Mrs. Soriwo, can you do that?
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. You are welcome to this wonderful section. Yes, this is DANVIC Petroleum International. We are a 100% Nigerian company here in Nigeria. We are more into a lot of services, but we work especially within the oil and gas industry. We commenced operation 2006, and since then we have been providing good and quality services to all our clients. Next slide. Okay, this is our shareholding structure. This is our managing director. He has already spoken before now. And this is our chairman board of trustee, General Dr. Yakubu Gowon, GCFR, former head of state of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Our business focus. This is what we want to let you know what DANVIC really, what we do here in DANVIC Petroleum. We are into integrated subsurface studies. We provide safety solutions to our clients. We also do recruitment and manpower supply services for both technical and management staff to the industry. We are into training, of which that is one of what has brought us together today. So now, I want us to go into the integrated service arm. Next slide, please. The integrated service arm here, we do subsurface studies. We do seismic interpretation, petrophysical modeling. We do full field FDP studies for the industry. We also tailor our subsurface studies to enhancement of production, where you are producing and you find that you are depleting in production, provide such services. In the areas where there are poor pressure problems in the deep offshore, we also provide pressure prediction studies. We do qualitative amplitude variation with offsets. All these and many more we offer as subsurface studies to the industry. So in this aspect of subsurface industry, this next slide, this is just an arm of our workstation where we do our interpretation. You can see some of our workstations, and we use good software as industry accepted software for all our subsurface studies. So we have a lot of jobs we've executed over the years. I just displayed a little of them. We have done work for many industry professionals, for many producing companies in the industry. We've done for Bema Oil, we've done for ADAX, we've done for Chevron, we've done for Agip, we've done for Pan-Ocean. We've done a lot of job all through, but this is just a few. If you really want to know more about DANVIC, you visit our website and you have more information. So our strength, as I've already said, we use world-class robust applications for our reservoir studies, and we have technically and highly experienced professionals who handle this job. We adopt the internationally acceptable workflow standard for our reservoir studies, and in turn, we deliver excellent jobs that are well received and accepted by all our clients. So now our next service, we move to our next service, where here we talk about our manpower. We provide manpower services to the industry, both for technical and non-technical. Here, when a company that is producing, they are in need of technically sound people, whether technical or management, we provide such services to them. We recruit and second to them. Either they will be on our payroll or they will be paid directly. Depending on the contract terms, we obey, and we try to make sure that we take care of our staff, whether they are seconded to that oil producing company or whether they are with us. So we do that services to all producing companies within the industry. Some of our clients presently, we have an ongoing job with ADAX, we have an ongoing job with Agip presently, provided HSC specialized, and they are doing well. So we move to our next service, the safety solutions. Here we have a partner, we are partnered with in that safety solutions. We have ICATs, they provide top-notch safety solutions, both fire extinguishers. If you want to get to know our safety solution services, they are very, very key. We have extinguishers that they are sensor sensitive. When fire is ongoing, the sensor ignites them, they now start extinguishing fire. You don't need to operate them, you don't need to move them, you station them on position strategically in your factory, in your facility. Immediately if there is fire anywhere, the heat triggers it, starts extinguishing fire. So we have such service when it comes to safety and fire extinguishing. So we are also into DANVIC Petroleum. Now, this is what has brought us together. We talk about that, the training, sorry, I don't know what my slide. The training now, this is where we talk about the exploration and production business. We provide training for the experienced professionals, we provide training for the young professionals. We also provide training for industry-based people. For the lecturers, we provide training for them. For those that are industry, we also do what consultancy job. Consultancy is that we train them on project base. Project based in the sense that any ongoing job, we also what second our consultants to them to train them on that job so that they'll be able to what. Yes. So that is most of our trainings. That is, you can see from our slides, the slide is not showing. From our slides, we have some trainings we have already executed. Even some years back, the person that is anchoring today's training had visited Nigeria. We brought him in. He did a lot of industry professionals in the industry. He has done that and he can testify to that. And we bring in we bring experienced facilitators. We make sure that we bring top-notch facilitators that will deliver according to the need of our clients. We don't joke with that because we know that after which, if you have done a training, you will still come back. So thank you. That is, we have a lot of clients. We have a lot of people that we are partners with. We partner with Pantera. We partner with Halliburton. We have lots of partners, both in the area of subsurface, in the area of, I've already told you, we have a partner in safety solutions, the ICAT. So we have a lot of partners that we work with. These are many more. If you want to know more about DANVIC, go to www.danvicpetroleum.com.ng. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And it's very nice to be working with DANVIC again. Well, basically, DANVIC represents my interests in Nigeria. So it's a great business partner that I care a lot for. So thanks so much. Could you please give me put me as a host so I can have more controls? And for now, let me share my screen. So you guys can see this? Is that good? Oh, perfect. Thank you. So yeah, I have here a lecture that we're discussing about application of stratigraphy in production settings, and I'll be discussing about some of the basic principles, things that you need to keep in mind that can help you quite a lot in work on production, and basically how to interpret seismic wells in an effective way. I will discuss about application in shallow marine systems, application in deep marine systems, and a quick conclusion. So at first, some of the history, and there are a few things that actually were developed, some ideas, some concepts that were developed in the 1800s that are still quite valid and very important for us. The question about stratigraphy and put stratigraphy as a revolution in stratigraphic thinking. Not really. Stratigraphy is just a method. It's just a method to help you interpret data in an effective way for the oil industry. This is a method that was invented to support industry activities. And this was in the 70s and 80s, and through time, I think we lost that view or that understanding of stratigraphy, what it really means. So stratigraphy is not a revolution in stratigraphic thinking. It's not a new concept or models. It's not a philosophy on stratigraphy and sedimentology. Stratigraphy is just a method. It's just a method that you can apply to any geologic data, and that can help you quite a bit in your activities. And this concept actually, this method was based on old concepts, but very good ones, very strong ones that we need to keep in mind. Sorry? Yes, I heard some noise in the background.
You can go on, sir. You can go on.
All right. So there's everything started with lead stratigraphy. Lead stratigraphy was actually invented in the 1700s, and was invented in the 1700s, and the first name that got was the Universal Ocean Doctrine, because the idea from Werner was that at one point the world oceans, the world was dominated by a single depositional environment in the geologic past. So at one point, the entire world was deep water. At a point, the entire world was shallow marine, and what are the chances for that, right? So, despite of being a weird concept, actually really persisted into geologic thinking in the 1700s and early 1800s, to a point that when you flip through papers from the 1800s, people, some of the scientists will say, is stratigraphy dead? There's no more research, there's no more ideas here, everything is stratigraphy. Up to the point that this Grizzly in the early 1800s invented the concept of facies. And the concept of facies is that facies is just a classification of a group of rocks. So it's a group of rocks with a specific type of sedimentary structures, biological content, chemical content, grain sizes. That's slightly different from the rocks that are next to it. So it's a comparison thing. And the reason why we break things into facies is because we are after deposition environments. So if you look at this figure here, when you go from facies 1 to facies 5, this would be a uppermost Jurassic marine formation. But the Grizzly actually saw that you could actually break those apart into facies 1 that would be shoreline, up to facies 5 that would be upper slope. So showing that those facies would be showing a continuous deepening in water depth. Building upon that, so if you want to talk about a revolution in stratigraphic thinking, that was the revolution. That was the concept of facies in the 1800s. So much so that created, basically divided the community at the time. There were people that would love lead stratigraphy, people that would love facies, and they would not like each other. So, so then there was a lot of research that was done on top of that based on facies, and I'll highlight a couple of those that are very important for us. And one that's very important is Walter's Law. And Walter's Law, it says that a facies that's observed in a vertical succession that's coeval, it's conformable, also occur as lateral coeval facies. So for those of you that that describe cores, if you have a core, for instance, in a deep water lobe, and you have facies A to E, like in the figure in the slide, facies E would be the more proximal facies in your lobe. Facies A would be the more distal facies in your lobe, and we're seeing this as a vertical stacking. But when you turn that horizontally, you now can actually populate rock properties in your lobe if that's your reservoir, because now you know what are the facies and the rock properties within the lobe. So it's a very, very powerful concept. In my case, in interpreting cores, I always have Walter's Law in mind. And on top of that, after that, there was the transgressive regressive cycles. That actually transgressions and regressions, right? We all love them. And this actually was invented also in the 1800s and reinvented a couple of times after that. The most recent one was Ashton Embry in 1980s. But the concept of transgression, so is old. It's nothing to do with six stratigraphy. Six stratigraphy just to use that. So transgression is one of the key misconceptions in six stratigraphy. People normally use that not properly. If you look at from the time slices T1 to T3, and you look at the yellow facies, and the yellow facies would be basically our shoreline, you see more colors on the left side of your graphic, mostly gray on the right. Gray would be the basing, So the continent then would be on your left, on the left of the figure. So the yellow from T1 to T3 is moving towards the basin. So, and that's the concept, and that's the definition of transgression, is the lateral movement of the shoreline towards the continent. That's the definition. Definition doesn't mention sea level rise, because you can have transgression, regression, or aggradation during sea level rise. So the definition is not sea level rise. Definition is lateral movement of the shoreline towards the continent. And if you can look at my hand now, if you can see the video, if you have a constant sea level rise or sea level rise going up in the same rate, if you have a strong sediment supply, you are going to cause regression. Is low sediment supply, you are going to cause transgression. So don't confuse sea level changes with transgression regression. Up to got to Peter Vail. Peter Vail, at his time, he was basically the most famous geologist in the world. And I think the major contribution he had was to say that seismic lines actually follow bedding surfaces. And then he said, well, if a bedding surface represents a point in time, so reflections will follow timelines as well. And he got a lot of trouble because of that idea. But if you look at this figure, let me try to annotate. You see this lining here. This is a field in West Texas. It's not important to know the name of the field, but that's the Woodbine Formation. And the Woodbine Formation will be this deltaic sands on top of the logs. And Peter Vail was actually doing well ties, trying to find a reflection, that's my red line here, that would be equivalent to the base of the formation. And he could not find it. The reflections would be the blue lines, and the blue lines actually would connect sands to silts to clay. And he was very puzzled by that. So the idea then, in the end, was that the formations actually were misleading to help interpretation at that scale, at the reservoir scale, because the sands, this sand is in here is not equivalent to this one. Actually, the sands in here, they are actually going down the slope like this. And all the sands after that will be doing the same, going down the slope until getting to silts like in here. So basically this sand in here is not connected to that sand because you have a marine flooding surface in between. So that's then was a major highlight for the industries that lead stratigraphic interpretations are very dangerous to us. Try to avoid them, and I'll be talking more about that. So then based on seismic, the idea, the model, the stratigraphic model was established with three system tracks: low stand, transgress, and high stand, based on three surfaces: sequence boundary, transgressive surface, and maximum flooding surface. And you don't need more than that for the industry. I know that right now we have something like 50 names for surfaces and system tracks. With three surfaces and three system tracks, you do everything you need to do for the industry, if you work in the industry. If you are on the research side, and then you can have more fun with the other ones. For us, it's just those would be more academic, not too important, you know, in our case, that's to make money. So there are controls, several controls like climate, basin physiography, tectonics, use disease, and then supply. But actually, the result of all these processes and controls are two: change in accommodation and sedimentation rate through time. So what stratigraphy does is to keep track of that, keep track of changes in accommodation and sedimentation rate through time. So those are the two ones that can actually put your hands on it. You can go and measure them. So the key building block for stratigraphy is the parasequence, and the parasequence is a shallowing upward succession of phases, meaning in the same spot on Earth, the depositional systems are getting shallower and shallower. And that's one example of a beach parasequence as we start in offshore. So these are offshore sands that basically water depth of 50 meters or so below the wave base until you get to a point that you are in the wave base, storm wave base, 30 meters, 20 meters of water depth. And then you get to the fair weather wave base that now you are in, 3-5 meters of water depth until you get to the foreshore that now just your feet is wet. So in the same spot on Earth, the depositional systems are getting shallower and shallower. Oops, sorry. So in going through that exercise, then you can actually you expect to have lateral changes in sand content for each parasequence as you go from proximal well A to distal well C, and you can stack the parasequences to create vertical stacking of progradation, retrogradation, and aggradation. And those are vertical stacking of shoreline systems. So we always track shoreline. All definitions in stratigraphy are based on shoreline position or shoreline trajectory. None of the definitions in stratigraphy are based on sea level changes. So if you follow this approach here to interpret and correlate well logs, you can actually just match log character and correlate logs that are similar. What's fine, but the problem of that is that you might not. Sorry. I'm having a little bit of a problem now advancing the, all right, I think I got it now. That's the other style of interpretation, where rather than correlating the sands 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, and 4 as the same sand, you see that when you put in a stratigraphic concept or method, these sands are not coeval. Actually, this sand 4 is much younger than sand 1. So this at a reservoir scale can give you a lot of problem. So, so then you have this 4 well logs. All these well logs in here are showing and finding up. If you have lit stratigraph concepts in your mind, you just might correlate logs that look similar. What's okay, but you need to be careful because at one point you might isolate all the continental strata from the marine strata. In that case, you are already in the lit stratigraphic world. So, and you need to think that if you have shallow marine sands, these shallow marine sands are connected to a river, right? The sands in the shallow marine world are not arriving by truck or by boat, are arriving by a river. So this correlation here is artificial. You cannot do this in this way. The way to do it is by defining your marine flooding surfaces, those are the horizontal lines, the marine shales, because they can actually give you much better understanding of the positional systems in their original positional profile. And then with that, you see that you can land in interpretation that's quite different. So if you look at the formation B, and the formation B is your reservoir, you are going to overestimate reserves because it's a thick sand, it's everywhere, and you overestimate connectivity as well. You're saying it's present everywhere and it's all nicely connected. And in fact, the sands have to be equivalent to the formation B would be this one, that one, that one, and that one, that in a chronostratigraphic sense, they are separated by marine flooding shales that will isolate the sands and make this completely disconnected. So you need to be very careful in applying these ideas, and I strongly suggest you not to use this stratigraphy at the reservoir scale. This is going to hurt you. So, so you need to keep in mind that in the end you have to correlate facies that are coeval, that were deposited at the same time. So if you are in Lagos, as you go to the continent, you have the rivers feeding the shallow marine systems, and then you have the ocean in front of you. So this is what a systems track is. These are coeval depositional systems that are linked in time and space and in processes. So, okay, let's show where the rubber meets the road in here. So that's our well log. We put the maximum flooding surface where the strong gamma is, and transgressive surface where we have a change in vertical stacking. You go from more aggradational to retrogradational. Retrogradational is a very important stacking for us in stratigraphy, because you define two surfaces on that. One surface below the vertical stacking, transgressive surface, one surface on top of the vertical stacking, that is the maximum flooding surface. And so you can think about transgressive surface as the beginning of the transgression and the maximum flooding as the end of the transgression. So that's one example from Venezuela of the Icotia formation as your reservoir, and that was a correlation in the field until got to a point that they tried to inject in the wells 4 and 5 to produce in wells 1 and 2, and didn't work. So didn't work, and then they start to think about other ways to do this correlation. So Peter Vale went there. First thing he did was to put a datum in the cross section. These are still the same sands. Those are the same wells. Just now, rather than seeing that in a structural cross section, now I'm seeing in a datum cross section. So then he defined the parasequences, mapped the parasequences around until you get to a fine interpretation where we have chronostratigraphic based interpretation keyed on marine flooding surfaces. Basically, most of the correlation lines here, if not all of them, are marine flooding surfaces. That also is helping define a major nonconformity with overlapping of strata as you go from the basin towards the continent on your right. So that would be the stratigraphic, the systems tracks with low stand up to H, from H to F transgression, from F to A high stand. And that's the old interpretation with a lit stratigraphic base. In colors is the new one. And if you think about the original correlation, the original correlation was like that. Basically was time transgressive. You were crossing timelines when you do that interpretation. And this for us is not academic. That's important because you are disconnecting 4 and 5 from wells 1 and 2, not because of a faulting here, but because of the continuous overlapping of these packages. So you need to be very careful because you have a lot of connectivity issues that is not related to structural problems, is actually related to depositional architecture. So you need to understand your depositional system. In that case, the reservoirs were transgressive wave-dominated bars, like in this example in here. That's different from my incised valley. That's different also from wave-dominated delta. So you need to understand the depositional systems that you are correlating. So every time that you put a correlation line in a well log or in a seismic, you are interpreting a natural system. So more you know about the natural system, better you're going to be to correlate your data set in a more accurate fashion. So here's showing that the sequence boundary in this river-dominated delta is actually separating mostly deltas from mostly incised valley fields, at least in this area here and in that area there, until it gets to a point that when you are distal enough, the fluvial sands actually be coeval to the delta sands, but not in the proximal area. In the proximal area, like in this point in here, the boundary between the fluvial and the delta is actually a nonconformity. So that's the seismic line from that same system. That's the Laniap Delta in the Gulf of Mexico. And now we are looking at the delta in 200 hertz. So one reflection there is about 2 or 3 meters thick. And we use those ultra high resolution seismic data in quaternary systems just to have a better idea, a better understanding about this architecture of the systems. So then we can interpret similar reservoirs in the subsurface, but with better concepts in your mind. So that's the 6 stratigraphic interpretation with the orange as a sequence boundary and the purple as delta lobes. And that's one of the logs. That's a fluvial sand. Those are delta sands. And let me draw another log in here. So that's fluvial, right? And then I have a delta sand in here, and maybe another delta sand there. And let me put another one here. Another fluvial package, delta sand, and another delta sand. Is that good? So if you just look at the original core and my beautiful logs and look at the well spacing here, so the well spacing is about 2 kilometers or less. So pretty much development scale log. So if you are interpreting this, and I bet that everybody and their brother would make interpretations here like this, right? You would tie all your sands together and declare victory because you say that this sand in here is that sand, because in each log I have 3 sands, and declare victory and move on. Sorry, so you get to a point that you're going to inject in this sanding here, and trying to produce here. In this case, this delta boundary here, the edge of this delta is draped with mud, so this sand will not be connected to that sand. The data, everything, all this complexity here in your data, in normal 30 hertz data, and I'll put a trough in here to show the size of the trough. The size of the trough will be that. So in your data, you don't see any of that, right? So you don't see any of that, but you see sands that are very similar, and you're going to put a fault in here between them because they are not connected. Be careful with that. Understanding of deposition architecture is crucial for your job. So you need to learn more about depositional systems to be able to make this correlation more properly. And for deep marine systems, let me throw a challenge at you first. So I have these logs. Look at my scale here. The interval spacing is also development scale. I'll give you some information here. This cross section is actually strike, is perpendicular to the flow direction of your tour guides, for those of you lovers of the deep water systems. So I'm deep water, this strike cross section, and the thickness of my reservoir is about 50 meters the entire cross section here is some 7 kilometers wide. And that's actually reservoir scale. So how you correlate that? So I could correlate as sheet sands, and I know that people love their sheet sands. I could correlate as channels. We also love channels. Or you can correlate as mounded lobes. So the question is, what's the right answer? Well, the right answer is, more you understand about the positional systems, a better job you're going to do. So then let's look at lobes. How lobes look like? And that's Ireland. That's Ireland, the Ross Formation in Ireland. And if you never been there, let me know, because we, Afi can help me out and we can organize good field trips for you there. Hopefully this pandemic will be over soon. But that's a beautiful clear face showing the positional lobes in all their glory. And that's a very beautiful sunny day in Ireland. So summer last year in Ireland actually was in a Monday afternoon. So normally what you have there is horizontal rain, doesn't matter when you are there. But you go there because the outcrops are fantastic. And you can actually break this lobe stacking as this coarsening thinking up packages, very similar to parasequences in shallow marine systems. So then you can measure them and have some dimension information. And I'll highlight the ones now that are the dimensions that you can care about that are important for a job. So basically, the size of lobes. So lobes can be 1 to 6 kilometers long, 0.5 to 3 kilometers wide, and up to 25 meters thick. And when I say lobe, I say a seismic scale body. When I see the lobe is seismic. Sorry. Here we go. When you look at those lobes in very high resolution data, you see that the C are the lobes, and the colors in here, the blues and the greens, are actually shales that are in between lobes. And in fact, even these lines in here between the lobes, like the one that I'm drawing here, those can be thin shales that if you are mid-deep or down-deep in a lobe complex, they can actually disconnect those lobes. So we can play the same game as we played before, as I can have a well logging here showing, a nice, coarsening up of a lobe, and then a mudding here. And then I can have a log there showing a little sand of just a lobe in here, mud, and then a nice thickening up sand of another lobe. And if you don't know any better, and again, you just see this in very high 200, 300, 400 hertz data, in your data set, you won't see it because in 20, 30, 40 hertz, you don't see those details. So you might just say that this sand is that sand, and correlate that's the sheet sand. So you're going to inject in this guy, that produce in this guy, will not work because the muds in between are your seals. So this guy is not the circle. This guy is not connected to that fella here because of this depositional mud. But you don't see that in your data. You're going to put a fault in here. So be very, very, very careful. Understand your depositional bodies. Understand your depositional systems. So then considering that this cross section is 7 kilometers wide and lobes are not that big, on average they are about 3 kilometers wide, sheet sands in this case you can discard. It could be channels, it could be lobes. So what else you can do? Well, add production information. So these are excess pressure plots, and the colored circles are sands with the same pressure or the same excess pressure. For production, if you have a 10 psi or 5 psi difference between your sands, that means that they still could be disconnected. I'm not talking about the baffles, I'm talking about barriers. So the vertical lines in my graph are actually showing, so each one of these vertical lines is 10 psi difference. So then with that, you can now see that, okay, I have yellow sands in here. I don't have yellow sands there, but I have orange. This is an orange sand. I have another orange sand in here. I have another orange sand there. So you start to, this is a green sand, another green sand there. So then suddenly using excess pore pressure, you can start to have a better idea about how that can be. And if you have even more pressure information in your data set, and then you can make very well-educated decisions about your main correlation lines, and then things start to look like lobes, mounded lobes, right? Like the green one. Okay, so when you have this interpretation done, so is that the right answer? Yeah, it is, because that actually was a trick. That was a 400 hertz data set shot in a lobe complex in the Mediterranean. That's the Golo system. So the size is in the background, but what the black lines are, they are the correlation lines of your lobe complexes or lobes, showing actually how misleading this correlation could be if you don't have in your head the behavior of those systems. When you know the behavior of the system, add a little bit of production information, and then you can do a much better job in mapping those systems apart and break those apart. And this is a real case example from the Gulf of Mexico, where actually the seismic was good enough, was almost 40 hertz at the level of the reservoir, that despite of the fact that the reservoir was basically one single trough, inside that trough I had 5 different lobes, and but looking at the cross-section views in seismic and also the map views, you start to see that you might have actually laterally stacked lobes in the system. So that was the clue to help then with the dimensional data plus the seismic, your dimensional information that you have in your head about how big lobes can be, and the nice well logs, then you can see the lateral stacking of different lobes and break that in a much more effective way. So then you don't waste money in dry wells or in wells that are not connected. So what about my beautiful sheet sands? What happened to them? Like the ones that we see in the Ross Formation, the beautiful long cliff faces in the QQ region. Well, doesn't matter how big is your outcrop. They are really small. That's the same. This guy here is the same. This is the outcrop photo, the same outcrop photo that we saw before. When you put at the scale of seismic, doesn't matter how big is your outcrop. The positional bodies that we are mapping around, they are way bigger. So we are always seeing just a small little piece of the elephant. So sheet sands are really dangerous concept for mapping deepwater sands, because in fact, you don't have physical processes that can actually explain sands that would remain with the same thickness for tens of kilometers in length. You can't. It's physically impossible to do that. So the maximum you can have is that they go for 5 or 6 kilometers, no more than that. And you might have shale drape in between, so you need to be careful. So then, as conclusions, first one, avoid lead to stratigraphy. It might lead you to overestimate reserves and connectivity. Walter's law is your friend, essential for interpreting cores and extrapolate information from control points, wells and cores. Learn your depositional systems. More you know about them, better you're going to be in building accurate stratigraphic frameworks. Our job is integration, integration, integration. All data are good. Don't discard data. Your interpretation needs to fit, it needs to explain the data. And don't forget production data. Often we forget that production data also is geologic data and can help quite a bit in your well log interpretations. And my last takeaway is that don't fall in love with your interpretation. Interpretation is just a working hypothesis. You don't know if this is true or not. So be ready to get your eraser and modify your interpretation to make it more accurate and to help explain new information. So folks, thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Afe, for the invitation. It's always good to be working with DANVIC. And I hope to see you guys in October.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you so much. This is a tip of what we'll be expecting. October 20 to 22nd, we will be having a 3-day program, and we're using this opportunity to invite all of you to join us. Victor will be here with us, and you can have all that is here. And we put everything together for 22nd to 24th of October. Victor will be there for three days, for 3 full days. And for those who are in Nigeria, it is going to be between the hours of 1 p.m., which is about 7 a.m. or so in Houston, and 8 a.m. in Toronto, up till 5 o'clock in West African region. So one of my colleagues will just give the, okay, there is the announcement here. The workshop, we have reduced the cost. It used to be about $3,500, but because of what is going on, and it's going to be online, and Victor has graciously agreed with us that we give it out at $500 for the 3 days. For the 3 days. So we will take the first people that comes on, and the account number is already there. For those in West Africa or Nigeria, you can pay in Naira. For those outside or within, you can pay in dollars. The account is there, and we'll also still circulate it around and ensure that everyone gets it. So we want to thank you. If you have 1 or 2 questions for Victor, I'm sure he's more than ready to take them. So can you please, if you can unmute yourself and please ask your question. We'll take 1 or 2.
And the link for the registration is actually in that slide. But Afe, please send the link for registration, just the hyperlink to all participants, because we're getting already questions in the chat about how you register.
Okay, yes, that is true. So we're going to send the link and all the information to everyone that registered for this class. And we'll take the first few people that, but we have a number we'd like to take. So the earlier you do that, the better. We'll send it today to everyone. So if you have any questions, go ahead, Peter.
I have a question here in the chat from Julio Murillo, and he's asking what's the best method to classify facies when using geophysical methods. Very good question, Murillo. I personally am a fan of Stratimagic. Stratimagic is an amazing software that can actually map seismic facies at a single cycle level, if you wish, and you can do unsupervised if you don't have well control, or supervised if you have well control, and you can actually build a very sophisticated facies maps using that tool. There are some other ways to do it as well, but that's my favorite. Anybody else? How you do outcrop stratigraphy? Well, in a continental setting, right? Is continental or deep water? Well, The idea about six stratigraphy is, as I said before, continental, thank you, is you just care about two things, right? You care about change in accommodation through time and change in sedimentation rate. So, so if I'm in a continental setting, there are several different ways to do it. One of them is that if I don't have lakes, it's just a fluvial strata, I'll pay attention to the maturity of my soils. And when I go from immature to very mature soils, or from mature soils to immature soils, is showing changes in accommodation from high to low and low to high. That already help you to place surfaces where you have the market change in accommodation. If I have a lake, it's even better, because then when you go to the lake, you can apply the method just like you apply in the marine setting. Because lakes also have parasequences. You can have parasequence stacking, and the placement of surfaces and systems tracks will be quite similar. Resulting geometries will be different though. We're going to be playing with continental strata as well in the class. It's not right to flatten the, so another question is when you are working the marine strata, it's not right to flatten the reservoir tops. Flats everything, man. I flatten the base, I flatten the top, and I keep flipping around. Sometimes I flatten both of them. You know, so we will distort the information inside, but might give me hints about the internal architecture. And use vertical exaggeration. Don't see seismic and wells in one-to-one. You need to have at least 10-to-1 to be able to see the architecture.
Yeah, you missed a question, Victor, from Dr. Jensen. What, therefore, is the role of biostratigraphy in the production sequence? I mean, in production sequence stratigraphy.
Biostratigraphy doesn't have the resolution for production scale problems often, right? Because if you are dealing with a reservoir that's tens of meters thick, that's bounded by major marine flooding events, when you see inside it, you want to see many more markers that can help you break it apart. If you look at just biostratigraphy, just age, right? Because the resolution of biostratigraphy is much larger than the time that takes to deposit a reservoir. So you can deposit a reservoir in thousands of years. The resolution of biostratigraphy is 100,000 of years, right, for markers. But you can use the paleoecology, not biostratigraphy, but paleoecology from the bugs, if you use foraminifera or better paleonomorphs, to actually break facies apart using at the reservoir scale using microfossils. That works really well. And there was one question here that's my pet peeve favorite, and I'll have that as the last one because of time. Yeah. But the low stand and the forced regression, right? So what's the relationship between forced regression and low stand? Forced regression is the late stages of the high stand. So the high stand, unfortunately, the names in six stratigraphy are bad. They were invented in the 70s, and I'll have a deeper discussion about that during class. But during the high stand, sea level is rising in the beginning, but then it slows down and falls towards the end, right? Because the consequence of a high stand is a nonconformity, is a sequence boundary, is shelf exposure. So sea level is falling during most of the high stand, and the low stand actually is the other way around. Culmination of the low stand is transgression. So sea level is rising so much during the low stand that culminates in transgression. So I'm creating too much accommodation, don't have sediments to fill it anymore. So then there's an unconformity between the forced regression and the low stand, and that's an old idea from Posamentier, and he already changed his mind. So this is what Posamentier thought in the early 90s. But right now, he agrees that the forced regression is not coeval to the low stand. It's older than the low stand, and there's a nonconformity there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor, and thank you, everyone. We will send the details of the registration to you guys. It's $500 for the 3 days. It has never been that low before, and we look forward to have Victor again to share your experiences. You can annotate, you can do anything within the 3 days, and that would be fantastic. So I want to thank you, Victor, for your time, for giving this. I don't know where you are in the world. I don't know where you are right now. But,
I'm in Mexico.
Oh, you're in Mexico. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much. And we want to thank everyone. I hope I didn't miss any question. Emmanuel, is there anything I need to say I didn't say?
No, sir, everything is good.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And that will be the end of the class. And look forward to see you October 20 to 22. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And see you guys soon.
Yes, thank you. All right. Bye.